Hi, I'm Steve. You're watching Gear Stuff and Things, and today on the channel we are going to talk about this jam right here, the PodGo. And yes, I realize I'm fairly late to the game. I didn't really have a chance to get to it with all the COVID business, but a buddy of mine had one and wanted to let me borrow it for the sake of making a video. So here we are, and we are going to get into it. There's going to be a playthrough, and it's going to feature all tones created here inside the PodGo. Then we are going to get into talking about the differences, as I realize there's a ton of videos on the PodGo available to you here on YouTube, so I'm not going to cover everything. I'm just going to cover stuff that I think is important and be as to the point and matter of fact as possible. So let's do it, PodGo jams. Okay, so that playthrough you just heard featured strictly PodGo stuff. So everything was PodGo, all of the tones, PodGo. So pretty impressive, right? Sounds quite a bit like the Helix, but let's talk about what's different between the Helix and the PodGo, because I feel like that's what's most important. So up first, there are a few things that we do not have here. So the Tone Sovereign, which is a dual channel overdrive, is not available, mostly due to DSP limitations. The Clawthorn, which is a dark class clone, is also not available due to DSP limitations. And the Cosmos Echo, not present due to DSP limitations, which that one's actually the one that is the bummer for me, but not a deal breaker. And lastly, the Legendary Drive is not available due to DSP restrictions. So, let's kind of elaborate on that a bit. It would be safe to assume that anything new that comes out for Helix as it gets updated, that is DSP heavy, will probably not be present on any PodGo updates. That doesn't mean that there won't be updates and there won't be new things added, but we're probably not going to get some of these super DSP intensive things to play with. Just not happening. Sorry. But it's really not a deal breaker. The tones are great. They are equal, in my opinion, to the Helix, if not completely indistinguishable. And I guess I could do a video doing side by side, but I feel like there's plenty of that here on YouTube, so I'm not really going to go that way. So let's get into some more stuff. Distortions, pitch effects, harmony effects are all mono. There are no stereo distortions, no stereo harmonies, no stereo pitch effects, which is kind of a bummer. There's also none of the poly stuff that is present in the most recent update. Everything else is stereo capable and will work just fine in that environment. There are some things that may get lost in the translation between the two, but again, I don't feel like those are deal breakers per se. So with delays, you have a 2-second max on standard delays versus a 4-second max on standard delays inside of the Helix. So again, a DSP issue, but 2 seconds versus 4 seconds. There's not a ton of folks out there that are using long 4-second delays unless you're doing some crazy looping stuff. Also, so if you're using the looper, you're gonna get 40 seconds instead of 60 seconds, which is what's featured on the Helix in stereo. And if you're doing mono, you're going to get 80 versus 120. But honestly, it's really not that big a deal. So Moving from that, the variable impedance is gone. That is not a thing in PodGo. So you are stuck at 1 meg impedance. That may be weird with some pickups, especially acoustic pickups. You may have to do some tweaking, but honestly, a little bit of EQ here and there isn't going to hurt you, and it's going to get you where you want to be. You're just going to have to spend a little bit of time on your patch if you're using something that is not happy with the 1 meg impedance issue. Your dynamic range is slightly varied, but from what I can tell and from what I've read, it doesn't seem to be something that's necessarily audible, so, you know, who cares? Latency is a tad bit higher than the Stomp and a tad bit higher than the HX effects. That's not necessarily a bad thing, I guess, because it's a DSP thing again, but latency is higher. But, and this is a good but, the latency is significantly lower in the PodGo than the Helix Floor and the Helix LT. Now, I don't find latency to ever be an issue with any of the Helix products, so the fact that they're even mentioning this seems odd to me, but I guess people want to know it. On the PodGo, DSP signal, the signal flow is so simple that the DSP is really not an issue when you are dealing with latency. So it's a plus side to the PodGo. There's very little latency, if any at all. And lastly, and the only kind of, I guess, bummer thing, if there is a bummer thing here, which again, this is not a deal breaker for me, PodGo modeling, all the models, the amps and the effects, so on and so forth, all of that is optimized. So they're not going to be updating pre-existing profiles that are on there, if that makes sense. So the amps you have on there are never going to be updated when they do updates. Which happens in Helix when they update things. They kind of optimize the DSP to work better with certain amps, and that's not a thing that's going to happen in PodGo. But again, it's the ability to conserve the DSP power that's inside the PodGo. I don't think that's a deal breaker either, because the stuff that's in there sounds great. It's very usable, and what you should really want, at least what I really want, is for them to add more amps and more effects. So that's a thing you should want over, like, are they going to update the ones I already have? Well, if you're not happy with the ones they already have, then you probably shouldn't have this thing. That's just my take on it. But yeah, so those are the differences. And I think that's honestly the most paramount part of making this sort of purchase. Now, if I'm going to be honest with you, had the PodGo existed when I went to purchase my HX Stomp, I would not have bought the Stomp. I would have saved myself a couple $100 and I would have gotten the PodGo. It's equally as capable, especially if you want something that's portable. The only things you're really losing, I guess, are the things I mentioned, and parallel processing, because you have different signal chains. But honestly, you can get good tones out of this thing without doing that. And because I make tones so frequently inside of HX Stomp or even LT or native, thinking in terms of how can I share these with people, I tend to stick to the 6 to 8 block limitation. And I try to keep it in a singular chain, so that it's easy to use and works across all the formats of the Helix system. So I personally don't find this too limiting, because you can get great results out of simple signal chains on the Helix. So just having a simple signal chain should yield good results, and it clearly does based on my experience with it. So I want to say thank you to my buddy Chris for letting me bum his Line6 PodGo to do this video, and as a thanks to him, I've put a bunch of presets that I've designed that are similar to the presets I designed for Helix into the PodGo, and as a plus to you, PodGo users out there, I have made those available to you as well, and you'll find a link to download them in the description. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Of course, I could be much more informative and go in depth with these things, and if you want another video pertaining to PodGo, then I'm happy to do that. But I feel like there's so much content out there pertaining to PodGo and all the answers, and frankly, Line6 has done an amazing job of explaining everything that's in there. And I mean, you can run 4 cable method, you can run standard. There's some limitations as far as the I/O stuff, but you don't have MIDI, and that's really the biggest deal. But you can run it into an amp and it sounds great. It's got designated outs for that. It's got a designated out for headphones, which is cool because you can use it to jam at home and practice. That's kind of the thing that got me hooked on the Helix to begin with. Is like I have this little thing that just sounds fucking amazing, and it fits in my backpack. And this is the same. It fits in a backpack quite well, and I'll put a little video of me putting it in my backpack along with my laptop and other things. Super portable, super effective, and honestly, if you didn't want to take anything else with you to a show, this would work just fine. If you are a studio owner and you don't have some sort of modeling stuff of your access, I know some people have plugins and stuff, but if you don't have that and you want more options and lots of tonal versatility that doesn't sound bad, go with one of these guys. You're going to spend like $450 maybe, and you're going to have a world of options at your disposal and something you can just have, in your studio anytime you need it. And pretty amazing. As far as portability, again, got this little handle guy. Again, lots of people are covering this stuff. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks so much for watching. And I'm sure you're glad to see me doing more gear-related things, because I've been doing a lot of videos from my car. So hopefully this is back up your alley, so to speak. And if you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and hit the little subscription guy, and make sure you hit the bell so you get notifications every time a new video goes up. If you are interested in supporting the channel further, or just interested in the music I create, I've put links to that in the description as well. Feel free to go check it out. It is all available for free, or name your price. So I don't expect anything, but if you want to take the time to go check it out, please do. If you have any questions and or comments, please leave them down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I hate that sounded like I was preparing an old voicemail. So you get it. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm here and I'm happy to talk to you, and hopefully this video is informative for you. So until next time, it's been me, it's been you. That's a window, and it's very bright out there because there's lots of snow. And yeah, that's painter's tape, and yeah, gear stuff and things. Bye.